Okay guys, so to start off this video, I'm not a doctor like Greg Doucette. I'm not your doctor. This is just entertainment purposes. Take it as that. Okay, so on Wednesday of last week, I went into urgent care. You can go to any doctor, you can go to your doctor, whatever. I just went to urgent care and I asked for a referral for a calcium score test on my heart. Cardiac calcium score test. So they checked up everything. Like I said, they checked the blood pressure. Blood pressure was 122/80 with 350 milligrams of caffeine and pre-workout in my system. So not bad at all. 241 pounds this morning. Very healthy right now. But anyway, doctor said everything looked great. Said I was perfectly healthy. He wrote me the referral for the coronary CT scan that checks my calcium score. So then I went to the local hospital, set up an appointment for the CT scan, and they had that done on Friday. So what they do, it's just like a CT scan. The actual dose of radiation is tiny. It's like less than what they even say it's gonna be. So they say it's gonna be like 1 unit of radiation. So in a normal year, you get 2 to 3 units of radiation total. So it's not something you wanna do all the time, but I got like a quarter of 1 unit of radiation. So the actual radiation is like minimal. The whole test takes about a minute total. Like they scan you about 3 times in the CT scan, just your heart, and it takes literally a minute for the whole thing. So I got the score back today, and these were the findings. And the whole reason I got this done was because obviously there's been a lot of bodybuilders who have heart attacks in their 20s and 30s. People use steroids, long-term steroid users who have heart attacks, strokes, or are just in generally bad health. So I wanted to see how my heart was performing and how things were looking, given that I have been not natural since about 20 years old, and I'm 27 now. So that's 7 years. And for probably, honestly, cumulatively, if I'd add it up, I would probably been on Tren Ace like 2 years of my life. So I don't run that anymore, and I'm a lot healthier now. As you see, I get blood work all the time. I got blood work today. I'll get you those results over the weekend if I get them back in time. And then I'm going to get blood work again 4 weeks out before the meet. So 10 weeks out before the meet, we got blood work, and I'll get it again at 4 weeks out, or 3 weeks, somewhere in there. But anyway, so I was trying to see how much damage I did over the last 7 years, and here are the findings from my heart. I didn't even know they were going to do all this, actually. So a coronary cardiac calcium score, a 0 is a perfect score. So if you have a 0, you have absolutely 0 calcium buildup in your arteries, perfectly healthy, no risk of heart attack or stroke for the most part. That's as good as you can get as a 0. So I had a 2. A 2 is pretty much the second best score possible. It's not quite perfect, but it's almost perfect. Anything under a 10 is really good, from my understanding. And I've heard of bodybuilders and such having scores of like 500. So obviously there's a big range here. I've heard of a lot of people, a lot of bodybuilders having scores in the hundreds. There was actually a study done in 2006 as well, where they had 14 bodybuilders, long-term steroid users who were bodybuilders, take the test, this exam. And half of them, 7 of them, were in the 90th percentile for high calcium scores. I think they averaged like 100 or something for their calcium score. So with a score of 2, which is basically the next best thing beyond a perfect score, I'm really happy with that. Shows there's like virtually no calcium buildup in my arteries. And a lot of it is genetic. If you have bad genetics for heart disease or heart attacks or anything like that, then obviously that's probably the biggest factor. But obviously steroid use plays a role too, so that's why I want to check this out. But hold up, what was I trying to say here? So there's many factors at play here. One thing you can do to that has been proven to break down the calcium in the arteries and reverse this process, if you have any buildup, is to take vitamin K2, specifically vitamin K2 MK7. That's the version you want, and long-term studies show that it does work. It doesn't work right away, but compounded over years, it will reverse the calcification process in the arteries, and that is how you would fix this problem if your arteries were clogged. I'm going to take it anyway. I have taken it in the past. especially with vitamin D3. They complement each other nicely, but it's not a huge concern. Now, something even more interesting. So basically, if you have a lot of calcium in your arteries, calcification, it causes heart attacks and strokes because there's blockages in the arteries, and that's how you have a heart attack or a stroke. So my heart attack and stroke risk is very low. Now, I didn't know they were going to do this part, or this was going to show up. So one of the things that happens when people take steroids is their organs grow. The heart is a muscle. So obviously, like, they've done autopsies on bodybuilders, and they have huge lungs and huge hearts and huge liver, huge kidneys. Like, everything's way bigger than the normal person from all the drugs. So the heart is a muscle, and technically steroids grow muscles no matter what the muscle is. So obviously we've heard about bodybuilders having enlarged hearts, and that can kill you. One of the more specific things you hear about is left ventricular hypertrophy. So tren is one of the drugs that obviously causes a ton of left ventricular hypertrophy, and it's something to worry about. But the findings from this were that my cardiac chambers, so there's four, I believe, yeah, there's 4 cardiac chambers in the heart. I'm spacing out right now. The ventricles, left and right ventricles, and then the is the atrium? I don't know, I'm spacing out. But there's 4 chambers of the heart. My chambers are completely normal in size, like a normal human. The cardiac valves have nothing wrong with them and are without calcification. My thoracic aorta is completely normal, and my lungs are clear. So my lungs are perfectly healthy. My heart is a completely normal size, and my heart is not plugged up with plaque. So everything came out honestly about as well as I could have hoped. Excellent report back. But this is something you guys can do where insurance won't pay for it. It's a rather new test, and if you're a younger person, nothing will probably show up unless you have a really bad family history, or if you've been using gear. But the test only cost $100, so it's $100 out of pocket to know that your heart's not plugged up and that your heart's not enlarged. Which, if you use gear, might be a good thing to check to see what kind of damage you're doing. But this also leads me to the conclusion that possibly GH, IGF-1, and insulin supplementation are more risky than actual anabolic steroids. Perhaps those 3 compounds do a lot more damage to the organs and the heart and all that than actual just steroids. I've never taken GH, never taken growth hormone, never taken IGF-1, which is a byproduct of growth hormone, and I've never taken insulin. So pro bodybuilders take this stuff all the time, and I'm wondering if that plays a much bigger role in overall health than just general gear use. And I'm not saying that as a conclusion, I'm just saying, wow, that might be true, because I've never used that stuff, and we've seen horrific results from people who've used that stuff. So it kind of makes you wonder. It's just my own speculation. If anybody else wants to comment on their belief on that, feel free to. But so this, guys, you can go to your doctor, request this test just to see where your heart is at. Pay $100 and get this done. So it's not a bad idea. It really isn't. If you're not on gear, you're natural, you might not need to do it. But even then, if you have a family history, it might be something you want to look into. But I just thought I'd share the news, and I'll get the blood work panel probably this weekend, and I will let you guys know how that looks. So this is well, we'll get to that later. But thanks for watching. Subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll get the Q&A up in the next day or 2.